So I got a special guest now. It's still NBA related, folks. Obviously, there was an article put out today on ESPN, and a lot of people have been talking about this. Um, why all the Achilles injuries in the NBA this season? And in the article, it was written by Maria Lawson. It talks about Achilles tendon right there. Achilles tendon injuries have become all too familiar headline in professional sports. And this NBA season saw more than usual, and it lists players there like Damian Lillard tore his Achilles, Jason Tatum, who we all saw in that playoff series. Fortunately, we just saw Tyrese Halliburton, James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, DeJounte Murray, Drew Smith. We saw Deshaun Watson in the NFL side of things as well. And this article lists from a doctor. I'll put it full screen here and get a reaction to it from our coach joining us. Medical experts attribute these injuries to overuse and accidental circumstances, and they had a bunch of medical experts on and people who specialize in these injuries in the article, and they talked about, you can see their quote, "At this point, we need to start thinking about the calf and Achilles in the same way. Do we have enough strength to be able to tolerate the sport that we're doing? The lower leg is lagging behind in some other things that we do." One thing that stood out to me in this article, they talk about prevention, right? So right here, they're talking about why there's so many injuries, and it says, you need to look at the amount of load on the athletes put on their body and recovery and all that stuff. But right here, how can these athletes prevent these injuries? And this a medical expert says stretching, especially hamstrings and calves. Well, I got the expert of stretching joining us now, the man who taught me how to stretch properly, and I still use the band every single day. And used it before I hopped on this live. Kind of reason why I was late. I had to make sure I stretch after I worked out. Coach Legrair's back joining us. Coach, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to see you. I
Um,
appreciate you taking the time to come on and get you a round of applause here.
just ran in from about 4 sessions today. A little warm out there.
Yeah, it was a little warm this week. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I sent you this article earlier. I don't know if you had time to really scan through it, but I actually showed some of it there and what medical experts said. I guess we'll start here, Coach. This has been a hot topic on the internet. Once NBA players, former players, really spoken on this, these Achilles injuries and why they're happening. I'm just curious. We saw Halliburton, unfortunately, Sunday night. Already had surgery. Probably going to be out all of next season. What's your thoughts as somebody, you've trained many pro athletes, obviously trained Butch Reynolds, and you still work with athletes now at all levels, and you're very familiar with all this. And what's your thoughts on this topic?
Well, they hit the nail on the head a little bit there with overuse. I mean, NBA players, a lot of games. They're playing a lot of games, which means they're having a lot of practice. I think fundamentally, a lot of athletes just sort of skip some of the prep. They skip some of the things they may have done when they might have been in high school. Flexibility is one of the athletic fails. You get flexibility, bad biomechanics or how you move, hydration, and strength.
Mm.
Those are things that make an athlete fail. If you're not flexible, you cannot do half the things that required for any level, high school, college, pro, whatever it is. So flexibility is really, really critical. There is a series of band stretches that don't take a lot of time, but you have to make time. When I was a little kid playing baseball in the projects, I heard an old coach tell one of the players, "You keep doing that wrong. Why is it that you always have enough time to do it over, but never enough time to do it right?" So I think if these guys and women, particularly on the female side, they're 10 times more likely to tear something or hurt something. But they just spend a little more time, a little more prep, postseason, preseason, and even during the season. Get a little bit more flexibility work in, get a little bit more balance work in, and hydration. I mean, you have to hydrate, so you got to be ready to play. So I just absolutely believe that flexibility and prep training would be critical to getting rid of some of these things. I think this season, I think I read there may have been 8 players in the NBA that
Yeah,
have torn up something.
right there. So Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, DeJounte Murray, and Drew Smith. So one, two, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, about 7, 8.
Yeah. So and probably there's only one or two of them under 25 years old. So as we age, it just can't do some of the stuff you did when you're 28. That doesn't sound like that's too old. When you're 29, when you're 30, being that age and playing a pro sport, that's hard. It's hard. So it
Yeah.
takes a lot more. Jerry Rice did a wonderful thing years and years ago about all of the things that he had to do and all the things he went through to stay prepped and ready. Um, and these few other players that went through some of the things that kept them going. By the way, tell Windhurst, you know, the best announcer in Ohio when he was back at the Beacon.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I will.
Yeah, but it's just it's not that hard. But it's sort of like I talked to some folks a couple of weeks ago. Like it's sort of like 1+1 is 2. But if I ask someone that, they'll think it's a trick because I'm asking them how much is 1+1. And prepping for sport or prepping to play is similar. I mean, it's not that hard. It takes time. You have to make time to do a bunch of little things that add up to big things. So you get a little injured, you miss a couple weeks, okay. Or you keep playing and playing and playing and going through it and miss a couple months. It's harder to come back as they age. So, you know, age is a factor. I don't know the ages of all these 7 or 8 players, but I'm going to guess that not many of them were under 25. I know there were some in the 30s.
Yeah. What's your thoughts in this article? You know, as soon as this happened that night, I texted you because, and they mentioned it. Remember when Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, ruptured his Achilles? He had a calf strain. Obviously, these guys, they're in the biggest moments in their lives. They're going to risk it and go out there and play. You know, it's obviously he knew the risk probably before he went out there. I'm sure they told him that was probably the risk. What is that there? I mean, a lot of people are wondering the difference between the calf strains. I mean, if you're somebody with an athlete out there, let's say at any level, high school on up probably, or middle school on up, and you have that calf soreness, tendonitis, how if you're a parent, a coach, a trainer, how should you properly approach that when you don't get to this point?
Well, first, you have to go and get it checked. I mean, that the big thing I have, 8 years old to 80. Oh, my hips hurting, my side hurting, my legs hurting, my calves hurting.
Yeah.
I'm tough. I can play through it. Okay. Well, there at some point I have a 48 to 72 hour rule with any athlete that I'm dealing with. If you tell me my calf has been hurting and it's hurting the next day and it's hurting that third day, it's time for medical intervention. I recommend getting it checked out, not to say I'm tough, I chew nails and spit it in the wood. I can play through this. You need to get it checked. If you don't want to do what the physician recommends, then don't do it. But at least 30, 40 days later, when something significant happens, where it's season ending or career ending, you knew what it was because you did the right thing and went and got it checked out. And then some parents tell me, well, my medical plan doesn't cover going to do this, doing that. But, if your medical plan covers a medical doctor, let a medical doctor look at. Some medical doctors that I've met and talked to have a little bit of sports knowledge as well. But I say go to a sports medicine person and just get it checked out. It could be nothing, but it could also lead to I'm done for a year, particularly as you start to age. I'm telling you, again, I don't know the ages of these guys that got hurt, but I'm going to guess that not many of them were 20 or 21. Our muscles do different things as we start to age. Atrophy sets in, things happen. So it takes more work. It takes more preparation. But like I told you before, I sent the Browns email maybe about 10 years ago now, a couple times. Hey, let me come up there and do some stuff with some athletes, particularly your skill guys that always seem to be pedaling a bicycle during preseason stuff.
We'll be seeing it here in a couple weeks when training camp starts.
Yeah, they'll be on the bike.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem, like I say, it's so easy that maybe it's hard. It's easy to spend those 11 minutes before you get on the court or before you get on the field and 11 minutes after. Not many pro athletes tell me they cool down. Some tell me they rarely warm up.
Yeah, you see a lot of guys. Yeah, now they don't really warm up. They don't really cool down. I never coach in my time being around high school teams, especially because that's the level I'm usually around a lot. I don't see a lot of teams properly warming up before they go in the weight room or working out. I don't see the coaches pushing stretching after practice. Everybody tells them about stretch before practice. What about after practice? I mean, that's part of recovery. I mean, every session I went to with you, we always stretched at the end. Warmed up properly in the beginning. We just always stretch at the end because it helps your body recover and stay loose and flexible. And, you're putting a lot of wear and tear on your body in those workouts and practices and sessions. I just don't see it. Is it how much is it just these teams are not really promoting it either? Is it the people they're hiring and they're like, especially professionally? Because you and I actually were somewhere this weekend where a pro athlete was, you asked them, hey, you been using that band? Nah, not in a while. Like, and it's easy for these guys. They do so much. They travel. They're so busy. They got so much to do. They got personal life. It's got to be promoted to them. I think as a reminder, that's on your training staff a little bit to like kind of promote that. It's like when you go to high schools, they got the hydration thing up there, drink chocolate milk, drink, water. What do you think of that? How much do you think these organizations and at any level, high school and any level, they're just not promoting? Is it the people they're hiring? What is it?
I don't know. I would love to be a fly on the wall at about 15 practices before and after, but I'm relatively sure there's not a lot of prep. I mean, prep for me is we're doing dynamic warm up. It could take 15 to 25 minutes. Now the body is a little bit heated and ready to go. We're going to hydrate. It's a water sport beverage. And then when it's done, like you said, the low fat chocolate, low fat strawberry milk. Hydration is critical to some of these injuries. But I don't know who they're hiring or who they're pulling in or what they're doing or what their protocols are. Love to do 10, 15 days at the Browns practice or 10, 15 days at the Guardians or the Cavaliers, just sitting there. I'm just a little bump on the log. I'm just observing.
That's another thing I never got. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I just think it's a lot of simple stuff that I just don't think they're making the time to do.
Yeah, I remember when I played high school football for the short period for a lot of stuff happened in my life. I was the only player that brought Gatorade to practice. And we had remember the old little water things where you squirt the little bit. And that's all they had. And I'm like, we'd be out there all day from 8 a.m. to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like 3 days basically back then. You can't do that now. But I was the only person, coach, that brought Gatorade. And not saying names, but that team had a lot of, they were short and depth wise. It was a smaller school, but that team had a lot of injuries come beginning of the season. A lot. Like, it was bad. I had never seen anything like it, but I was sitting there looking around like, hey, man, we ain't got no Gatorade, no nothing. Like, how do you not have electrolytes on the sideline during the games? And I remember in Pee Wee, we started incorporating Gatorade into our games and stuff, and it helped our performance. We felt it. It's just incredible. Some of these high schools, how they're just way behind still in a lot of this stuff, or just don't really care.
Absolutely, and that's a critical piece. Hydration is, like I said earlier, the athletic fails. Hydration, flexibility, biomechanics, strength. And when I say strength, I kind of hesitate saying strength because I was speaking to a group, and when I mentioned strength, and I said, "How many people are thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger?" And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you got to be huge, dude." No, you got to be agile, fragile, and mobile. So it's just a different thing now than it was 35, 45 years ago. I really, 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 really wish that teams particularly would spend more time in preparation instead of saying, I don't have time.
How long do you think that preparation period should be from, let's say, NBA, for instance? They just ended their seasons, right? So now they're going to take some time off. Guys are going to go on vacation. They usually ramp back up late August, September. What does that preparation look like in your eyes? What should that look like?
Well, definitely need to take some time off and recover. Right. Body's been beat up. They play a lot of games, and again, which means they do a lot of practicing. So the getting it off your body is great, man. Just chill. Go sit in the pool, go swim, go do commercials for cell phones. So just chill out. Just take it easy for about 30 some days. Just let it chill out. You go back in there. We're not going back in playing 4 quarters, full tilt. We're going back in there with medicine balls, bands, Bosu balls, little tiny strength things. Then we're building up to pushing a building or pushing over a truck. So it's the little muscle groups to the big muscle groups. But believe me when I tell you, that 6 to 10 weeks, a couple times a week of doing something dynamic movements flexibility, balance. Again, I told a parent last week, I don't know, maybe this is way more difficult than I think. And it's sometimes, if you go to a physics class in college that they made me take for some reason, the physics professor knows how to explain all of this stuff to you.
Mm-hmm.
But can they explain it to you so you understand it? That's the hard part.
Right.
So I think just getting going back to basics. Like we were talking about the event we attended. Hey, go back to basics.
Right.
If your hamstrings are hurting, your hips are hurting, you've already had the medical intervention piece. They can see what's going on. Go back to basics. Go back to fundamental strength, fundamental balance, fundamental agility, fundamental flexibility. At that point, now we can start building into something. It's like building a house.
Yeah.
You do the basement if you're in Ohio, then the next floor, then the next floor, and ultimately you get to the attic. But it takes time, and you just got to make the time to make these things work.
I've always wanted to ask you this about the weight room. Obviously, the weight room is a big implement in all sports, especially football, obviously, and then basketball. These guys constantly in the weight room as well. What do you tell your athletes, especially professionally, that or college, especially that are constantly in the weight room? How do you balance between, let's say you're a basketball player, you're going to go train with your trainer, go work on your game, maybe go play 5-on-5 pickup all summer, whenever you start ramping back up again. The stuff you just mentioned they should be doing about prep work, and obviously teams are going to put them, a lot of times these teams, they put them on these workout plans in the weight room and stuff like that. How do you balance all that out as an athlete to where you're not overused even before the season starts?
Well, that's a critical piece and a critical point. 8 years old till about 20 is strictly overuse. There's rarely an athlete that I've run into that may not be playing 2, 3, or 4 sports in one season. Now, that sounds crazy if you think about it. So you got a track and field athlete that's playing football or doing a lot of football stuff. Track and field athlete that's doing track season is playing basketball or doing a lot of basketball stuff.
Or even these one sport athletes, they're still going to camps and playing in AAU and tournaments all year. Like football guys, they're constantly going to tournaments now or camps. So go ahead.
So they have a significant amount of overuse. And a lot of the little injuries, particularly the non-contact kinds of stuff, like that article was talking about, it's overuse. You're using it too much. A lot of younger people think they've got a big red S carved on their chest, and their parents take them to 19 different events a week. And they're like, well, they want to play. Well, they don't drive, and they're tired. I call it R sickness. You get a kid that's doing all of this stuff. You put them in the car. You put the car in R. They're asleep.
Yeah,
they're done. They can't even carry their own bag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too much. It sounds like the right thing to do to keep going and going and going. Like you're an Energizer buddy or something. But the insider training secret is recovery. I beat you up twice a week for 8 weeks, and then I give you a few days off to rest. It's not an accident that there are built-in recovery days in the NFL and the NBA,
right,
and Major League Baseball.
Which is also mentioned in that article right here. I'll let you talk. Go ahead. I'll pull it up. Yeah, I think it was. I said right here. I think it's more rest days. He mentioned in one of these. Yeah, right here. Stretching was obviously one of them, but then also more rest as well.
Yeah, recovery is critical. And then again, that hydration piece cannot be overlooked. Most people think about the hydration piece when it's like yesterday. I was outside; it was 98. The real feel, the part that most people forget about, the heat index, made it feel like 107. You can participate and do some things outside when it's 107. You just have to stop more. And I told all the athletes that I was going to be working with 2 days ago, hey, the temperature is going to be 100. We're not going to be on any turf, but we will be on a track. And it's a little warmer than the air temperature as well. But the key part is the real feel, what it feels like on your skin when you add in that humidity. So I tell them 2 days before that, hey, it's going to be bad. We got to make sure you're hydrating. You get those 3 bottles of water in you, get a sport beverage, get a hold of some milk if you're not lactose intolerant. You got to be ready 2 to 3 days for this hydration thing to kick in. So I did like 4 times yesterday. And
how often? How do you? Yeah, I was gonna. How often are you doing that? Like minute wise, and all year long? Let's say you're playing a basketball game, middle. I mean, how often should you be drinking fluids throughout a game or practice or training session?
It'll vary by athlete, but for me, like when it's this hot outside, we stop about every 6 to 8 minutes.
Okay.
And we don't necessarily have to stop and drink every 6 to 8 minutes, but we just have to stop and let the body cool down.
Yeah.
We gotta, let's let little recovery time come in there, and then we're gonna hydrate. I tell the athletes, you gotta sip. You get some water, you sip. If you stop and do something, and I see this when I'm announcing basketball games often, timeout. Guy goes to the sideline, takes the water bottle. He's about 2 minutes from passing out. I mean, you shouldn't have to drink that much in an 8-minute quarter, and you just played 3 minutes and it's a timeout. That just tells me the kid did not hydrate yesterday. He didn't hydrate the day before, and now his body is like, you put it in me or I'm going to stop. So, you got to stay on some of that stuff. I tell some of the pro athlete guys, man, I know they're probably thinking, we're giving you $90 million a week. Get your own water. Take care of your own body. But I'm sure they got trainers and that stuff in there too, making a couple million a year that should be paying attention to some of this stuff. I read an article a few years ago, USA men's soccer use heart monitors and beeper things on their bodies and their shoes. And some guys over there like, oh, you're at your target heart rate, you're done. You're at your target heart rate, you're done. So science is still entered into this thing and makes it a little easier. We just got to stop. We just got to make the time to prep. And I think a lot of these little non-contact injuries go away. Collision sport, I think basketball is a collision sport.
Yeah.
You're going to run into stuff.
Yeah, it's I was going to ask you too, what about a lot of the cutting in basketball too? Like, I mean, because these guys are tall, lengthy, not the most coordinated guys at times because how tall and lengthy they are. Like some guys we've seen drafted tonight.
Yeah.
If you were working with a kid like that, right? And let's say like a Jason Tatum who's 6'9", 6'10", tall, lengthy, very long, maybe not the best coordinated, not terribly coordinated, but not the best. Not like when you see like a Paris Campbell running.
Yeah.
Who you trained. So how would you work with a kid like that or a guy like that where it's like, how do we work in your just proper movements when you're handling a ball? And so we don't have those kind of, because a lot of guys you see when they cut, like Halliburton, as soon as he planted that right foot and was going, which is his game.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Yeah. Again, it's for just about every sport and every athlete, it's fundamentals first. We got to break off into these fundamentals. That's why I evaluate an athlete before we do any type of training. I want to see where you are. What are you doing now? Let's get some video on you, take a look at it, see what your hips are doing, your knees are doing, your feet are doing. So we got to go to the basics. Again, it sounds crazy, but it's so true. You get a 6'9" guy, he's going to have some flexibility issues because he's 6'9".
Yeah.
So we got to spend a considerable amount of time, other than a dynamic warm-up. He's got to do some homework. He's got to go home and do stuff. And I don't think there's many collegiate or NBA or professional sports athletes that doesn't do some homework. They're doing some stuff that we don't see. I saw a video decades ago of Michael Jordan running the stadium stairs at the stadium. Allegedly ran them so many times and did jumps up those stairs that he wore out that little safety strip that keeps you from falling on the edge of the step. So we don't see that. We don't see LeBron James shooting blindfold layups. We don't see LeBron James bouncing on a Bosu ball or pulling on a 195-pound band. So what we don't see makes a huge difference. I mean, I'm glad to do something with you for an hour, but I'm only seeing you for an hour. So now you got to take this stuff home. I call it take with training. You can take this stuff home and help yourself get better. I said, if I ever get with David Morgan and write a book, it's going to be something in there saying, I can take you to the water of athletic development, but I cannot make you cup your hand, bend down, and take a drink. You got to want to. So to that end, it might be hard to stop doing stuff to prep. I got to use this stretch band. I got to use an ankle band. I got to make sure I'm sipping on water all day. I got to have a sport beverage for all those electrolytes that I'm sweating out. And I got to recover. But as you said, you witnessed, there's not a lot of teams.
No.
A lot of my friends still coach football, a couple basketball and baseball friends that coach. They don't cool down. All right, see you guys tomorrow. I mean,
Yeah.
we're out.
And the schools that I see, Coach, I mean, a lot of people always say, well, they got all this talent and this and that. The schools I see that succeed the most, Coach, they just had the better training.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that.
one school, I'm talking about, I see
Yep,
all the time.
yep,
They're pretty well advanced in a lot of the beautiful facility, and
yep,
I've heard a lot of stuff they do training wise, especially the old
yep,
strength coach they had. They were pretty well prepared for a lot of the proper stuff, hydration,
yep.
had muscle milks in the fridge and stuff for after practice, pushing that. You know what I mean? And like the schools that don't, maybe they don't have the funding, where they just don't push it. They
Yeah.
usually don't pan out well.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely. I mean, science has done this stuff for over 20 years. That science has said we need to do this for our bodies. We need to do that for our bodies. But
Hmm.
we got to recover and we got to prep. We got to start. We got to warm up. We got to cool down.
So
And
if you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I know we got to warm up. We got to cool down. But a lot of people will tell me they just don't have time. Again, when I was 10 years old playing shortstop in baseball and hearing a coach say, "You don't have time." Never enough time to do it right, but always enough time to do it over. So, so
Yeah.
let's do it right the first time.
So before we my last question for you, or I'll let my guy here too, and I think he's got a question for you.
Okay.
Um, so when you're working with a basketball player, like I said, so you're giving them individualized homework to help them with the movements for when they're out there cutting, planting that foot, crossovers, all that kind of stuff. So you almost have like an individualized plan you give them for their type of body frame and their movements after you evaluate them, right? So that's kind of what that homework is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm
And
going
it's
to
a
do
lot of
it while
balance
we're there.
workouts, and flexibility, and
Yep. Tendons and ligaments in the ankle need attention.
yeah,
Um, you
yeah,
know, when you get older again, man, that is just more subject to a longer time out from an injury that if you were 16, 3, 4 months, you're 29, 30, 32, 36, 2 years, you know,
yeah,
and when you come back, you got to feel like, is this thing ready? Yeah, it's been a year and a half, 2 years. Is this thing ready? But injuries happen. Stuff happens. Again, you're talking about collision stuff and contact stuff. That stuff's going to happen, but you just want to prevent as best you can the non-contact stuff. Like again, girls are way more susceptible to a non-contact season-ending injury, or career-ending injury from
mhm,
non-contact. Some of those, especially the sports medicine folks, say you can prevent some of that stuff, but you got to work it. I mean, it takes time.
yeah. Well, what do you think too? Basketball players in particular, because that's obviously the article they mentioned about strengthening the leg, right? Strengthening those muscles,
Mm-hmm.
strengthening. I'm somebody who rides a bike a lot all year long. I see that helps my legs stay strong and up to beat and stretching. Obviously, a lot of these basketball players, coach, a lot of it's just the way they're built. They're more lengthier
Yeah,
guys, but their legs
yeah,
a lot of times are very, very frail. And I know they do a lot of lunges, but I know that's one exercise you and I've always talked about that's done incorrectly
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
And I've heard some NBA players say, "Man, we trained a lot more back in the day. Like our legs were stronger and stuff." John Stockton looked like a little guy on TV, but guys that played against him, they said his legs were huge.
yeah,
His calves. I mean, he was
yep.
strong he was for his position. And I don't think he ever really got hurt a lot either. Like, I mean, these injuries weren't that common back then. How much is that in terms of hey, what do you think the shift's been? Because is it? I mean, I can see a lot of these teams doing incorrect lunges, and when they do these lunges, I know they do a lot of things with the weights and they lunge at the same time. And I mean, what do you think it is strength wise with these NBA players that they could be going wrong?
I think they're doing a lot of stuff that they don't need to do.
Yeah,
Just from again, not sitting in there for 10 times, 10 practices and 10 things. But the weight room is kind of a placebo, and it fools a lot of people. Like as soon as I say strength, if I'm talking to a group, they immediately go Charles Atlas, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
got to go squat 500 pounds, and
Yes,
yeah,
yes. You play football, you got to be able to push a building over, or you're not going to play in college, which ain't true. But so
right.
the weight room can be very, very good, but we just can't overuse that. Again,
Mm,
agile, fragile, mobile. And high school, I don't even think anybody does that 125 bench press at the combines anymore. They throw a 6.5 or 7 pound medicine ball from their knees. That's the replacement for most college combines. They don't mess around with weights anymore. Can you move? Can you stop? Can you jump? Can you land? You got all of those events that require movement and agility and balance and speed. 5-10-5, L
Mhm.
drill, 40-yard dash, which they're actually timing the 10, 20, and 30. Not a whole lot of 40-yard plays in football, but if you turn your volume up and watch NFL Combine, running backs, receivers, turn the volume up, you'll hear beep, beep, beep. They're timing quickness, 10, 20, 30. How quick, how fast. So, those kind of things, but just a little bit more prep, just a little bit more time
Yeah.
to prepare. Huge difference, in my opinion, a huge difference. And being able to be a little bit more injury free. But it's a sport, it's a collision.
Right.
Stuff's going to happen when you come in contact.
If last one I got for you, and Tune, if you're there, I'll hand it off to you if you got a question for him. If you were a team trainer or a team, whatever, for high school, college, pro, how many times a week should your team be in the weight room doing weight room sessions?
That'll depend.
Either training camp or during the season. Like, what should that look like? Because I think that
It'll
might be a lot of it too.
It's athlete specific and sports specific. I would say what would be necessary. Again, we don't want to bulk up. We don't want to. You don't see many NFL players bulking up. If you did a pickup football game and Tom Brady and a couple other guys were standing out there on the field in the park in your neighborhood, and you're doing a pickup football game, you wouldn't pick Tom Brady if you didn't know who he was. Look at this skinny dude. Get him out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Flasco, man, what is this dude doing? What is he bringing water to us?
Yeah.
You wouldn't pick these guys. But what they have accomplished and what they've done is their preparation to play the game that they play. Baseball players do different things in the weight room than football players. A first baseman does different things than a pitcher. A running back should be doing different things than a 390-pound lineman. So that's why I say it's athlete specific, but you just need to prep. You need to prepare for going to battle, and you got to put some armor on your body. And I think it's kind of simple, but it might be too hard. It's like asking you a trick question. How much is 1 + 1? You'll think about it and look up at the ceiling and go, this is a trick. So I think when it comes to athletes, preparation is kind of like that. It's got to be a trick to this. But we just got to prep. And I think teams should prep more. I think youth should prep more. And don't talk about lunges, because today I saw some kids out. I had to turn my back. I'm like, I don't want to see this, man. I don't want to see this. But little things like that go a long way. When you're more flexible, more powerful, you're hydrated, it just makes playing the game easier.
Yeah. Tune in Sports. You still there, brother? We got Tune.
I put him to sleep.
Yeah. Tune, you there? I think we get his mic's off. Maybe we'll come out and come back in. Let's see. I'll give him 1 second, Coach. I think he might come back in. I think he had a question for you, so I'll make sure he gets the question off. But I do want to ask you, though, about lunges in particular real quick before we let him get back up here. What is one of the more fundamental movements that are incorrect you see in lunges? Because that seems to be a big one. I hear you talk about it all the time. I see it all the time. What's incorrect about that you see a lot?
I see a lot of, particularly young kids, their knees going way out past their toes. So you're putting the ACL and MCL, your hip flexors, hamstrings, quads, shins, all in a crazy position. Sports medicine and rehab, when a kid gets hurt, they go to rehab and they do stuff the right way. They're forced to get that knee back over the ankle. It's a phenomenal exercise. It's a very powerful exercise. When I'm training, we may do 200 an hour. We'll do 150 push-ups, 150 sit-ups, 200 lunges, some jump rope, and then some fitness kind of stuff. So it's a great, great, great exercise to do. We just want to do it right. Again, take the time to do it right rather than do it over.
Tune, you there, brother?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had got a call and I was talking, but my mic was out.
You can say I put you to sleep.
Oh, nah, 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 coach, nah, not at all, not at all,
Yeah,
man.
Coach, this is Tune In Sports, a fellow colleague of mine on YouTube. He has his own channel. He's a New Jersey-based guy, covers the Cavs, got a big channel over there growing. So,
This looks like one of the Cavs picture I see.
yeah, that's Donovan Mitchell right there with the
Ah,
shades on.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's my guy, right
so
there.
Tune's
Yep.
all things Cavs, NBA. So he's obviously into this conversation because he covers the NBA. But go ahead, Tune.
Tell Donovan I got them hamstrings and quads, man. Just give me about 2 times a week for 10 weeks.
Oh yeah, we could use you. We need him to stay
Yeah, we
healthy,
need you.
man. We definitely need you. But nah, yeah, honor to talk to you, coach. Appreciate you coming up here. Honor to talk to you. I guess, yeah, going back to the NBA, of course. Um, I want to know your opinion on like I guess the shoes. I know some fans. There's fans out there that blame the shoes that the players are wearing. They think players should start wearing like low tops and more high top shoes. You know, back in the day, I know they was balling in like Chuck Taylors, and you know, if you wore Chuck Taylors, you know exactly how it feels to wear Chuck Taylors and hooping them. But guys like I think Jerry West, Magic, Larry Bird, and them
Bill
guys.
Russell.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
respect to those guys. But what is your opinion on like the shoe that the NBA players wearing? Do you think that plays a factor in the injuries we seeing?
Interesting question. And somewhere in a Foot Locker in my storage bin is a pair of Chuck Taylor canvas Converse from my 7th grade basketball team. Um, we some other friends and I were talking about this, and like all of these fancy shoes, $180, $280, everything's wrapping around. But there is, in my opinion, of these shoes, there's zero or very little protection around your ankle. And also, I think the fit on some of these shoes. I mean, I've seen some slow motion video of a pro athlete cutting, and it looks like after his foot plants, the top part of the shoe goes way out too far. Just my opinion on what you need to secure your foot to make a jagged cut, or as my uncle used to call it, a rabbit dot. When you step out, step back. I think they're just kind of too fancy, if you will. Some guys that I played in high school with and in college, we would go like, so how many people hurt their ankle when we were in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade? We wore Chuck Taylor Converse. They were made of canvas. I don't remember. There had to be somebody, but none of us could remember somebody missing a game because they hurt their ankle or they hurt their calf. But the other side of that is I think we notice it more because athletes today are bigger, faster, and stronger. And there are a couple of sports shoe stores that I send kids to get shoes. They cost a lot of money, but they fit your foot to the shoe and not the shoe to your foot. Huge difference. Now I can stop. Now I can cut. Now I can turn. And you watch some of those slow motion cuts and why is this foot, top part of the foot, not the sole of the shoe, going so far outside of that leather? Why is it going that far? So I think there is a combination of some things with that, but I think in essence it comes back to are these guys prepping for that stuff?
Yeah, man. Because I know a lot of fans be wondering like about the shoe because a lot of these guys getting shoe deals and stuff like that, and wondering about the safety and performance of the shoe. Do it play a factor on these players? Because it's crazy. Like they really played in Converse, and
Yeah,
them Chuck Taylor. That's crazy. I don't know, man.
yeah.
That's crazy.
I see a kid coming up to train and they got on Chuck Taylors. I'm like, who is Chuck Taylor? And they look at me like, what?
I actually got a picture right here, Coach. It just went off my screen. Where'd it go? I actually had a picture. I'll pull it back up here, Coach, of Jason Tatum wearing his shoe. I'm curious what you think of these shoes right here.
Yeah, you can't. A couple of athletes I have play basketball. They go to maybe 7 or 8 stores or ended up ordering something online to get something that's above the ankle. A lot of them go around the ankle. And again, my opinion is just not a whole lot of support with that. And that may be why those old Chuck Taylors that's in my Foot Locker, not the store, my own Foot Locker in my storage in my garage, probably went around my ankle when I tied it tight. John Wooten once did a how you tie your shoes to college athletes. He had the best athletes in America, and he had to tell them how to tie their shoes. That's part of the reason the foot goes too far, in my opinion, around the shoe when you cut or turn. Any kid that walks up to you, tell them to bend down and grab the bottom lace, the very first eyelet, and pull it up. You will probably get 2 to 6 inches how loose that shoe is. So I think that's a contributor. I don't know how these guys tie or what they do, but that is definitely, I think, a contributor. If you don't have something holding that foot down and it's sliding all over the place, it's definitely going to be an injury. Plus, we're getting older. Not me.
Yeah, I know
you
in the
guys.
article it mentioned they said your heel should be slightly elevated in the shoe. The doctor said. When you look at these shoes too, Coach, what I noticed, and too, and I'm sure you have you noticed this too. It looks like these shoes are higher off the ground more. These like the from the bottom of the shoe up to your bottom of your foot, they're higher, and you're seeing a lot of these shoes, not just in sports, but just in general in fashion
Yeah.
and stuff. These higher platform shoes. You know, I bought a pair of these Nikes probably like 5 months ago, and they were more higher platform. First time I ever
Yeah.
bought a shoe like that. I can't wear them anymore. My feet started to hurt. The
Yeah.
back of my back of my legs started to feel a little like sore. I'm not wearing them anymore. What do you
It's
think of that, Coach? The higher, because I know Kobe Bryant, when he started having injuries in his career, he specialized a shoe with Nike where it was like lower to the ground a little bit, but his foot was set into it, his heel was elevated, and he also had ankle support on the
Yep.
side too, where his foot was stable.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
It almost looks like a podiatrist made this. I mean, we're supposed to walk X. This is how we're supposed to walk. The shoe's supposed to kind of move a little bit. I think a lot of that got into shoes. You pull up a picture of old Chuck Taylors; they're flat in the ground. But
Yeah.
again, it's supposed to be better support, better for the foot. It makes your foot feel better. But I think a lot of it is these footwear is kind of wow, man. I mean, when you look at somebody cutting and their foot's going way over the edge of that shoe, I don't think that's good. But I'm not a doctor, so I think if you can stabilize that, it's better. But again, there are 7 or 8 band exercises to help strengthen the tissue and ligaments and the muscles around your ankle, lower and upper calf. And it helps you when you get that roll or that bend. It come back a little quicker, but it's a sport. We're going to hit stuff, we're going to fall, and we're going to get hurt.
Yeah. Tune, you got anything else?
Yeah, I got one more question. Yeah, Coach, what are your thoughts about load management? I know we've seen a lot of it more with not even just older athletes. I know a lot of young athletes have been load managing more, especially like on back-to-back games. I know we see guys like Kawhi Leonard who specialize in load management, and he gets a lot of hate for it. He didn't want to try to rush back too early. He knows his body, but he's a guy that specializes in load management. So, you have guys load managing on back-to-back games. I know it's a long season. I've seen a lot more. Like, what is your take on it? Do you think it's a smart thing? Is the play is soft? Like, what are your thoughts on load management?
Give me 1 second, too. I think he came back in. You
Yeah, I
there,
think Coach
Coach?
froze.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, we got you back in. Did you get the
Okay.
question there?
Well, I got most of it, then we blanked out. But if you meaning load management as far as play and activity and those types of things, I think that is critical. And I think now the NBA will even put out that Michael Jordan's not playing Friday. He's resting. So people don't buy those tickets looking for Michael Jordan to play. But load management in that regard, again, that's back to the recovery piece. And once again, when we start getting older, we can't play 90 minutes. We can't play 60 minutes. So it got to be a difference. And I think that should be medical intervention as well. There should be some medical persons, getting over this thing, looking at these. I think pro athletes particularly should have assessments about every 6 months, full body assessment. Not to mention the concussion thing, but how are my ankles? How are my knees? How are my joints? What am I doing? Rather than just saying, we're just going to keep playing until something breaks. But managing that stress, I think, is good. And once again, we're back to prep. I think we can manage that better if we're prepared for it. 60, 90 days preseason, postseason recovery, just chill out and come back after it.
Yeah, Michael Jordan played 82 games, I think 10 times in his career. And you mentioned earlier, a lot of people, when you read articles about Michael Jordan, he was doing stuff that people never saw.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of, you know, he worked with Tim Grover, obviously, a lot of preseason prep work and building his body up. So it's almost like, is that the key, coach? Is if you're an athlete, like pro athlete in particular, if you do all that prep work in the season, by the time you get in the season, you could still play. And obviously, you want to play 82 or whatever, but it helps you take more days off in between.
It's huge. It can't speak enough about preparation for over the years for me with athletes. I generally would start track and field indoor-ish kind of stuff in December, a couple times a week, just doing prep work. 6 to 7 weeks of that, late January, early February. Maybe we go 3 times a week. I'm not doing a lot of endurance stuff. We're not trying to push trucks. We're not pushing buildings over. We're preparing our bodies for what we're about to do. High school athletes can compete in 4 events in the track and field meet. That's a lot. We don't get much heat or nice weather, but that's a lot. 4 events is a lot when everything is aggressive. So December, January, February for me is when preparation for that. Now we're starting to get into some physical part of it, some fitness in late February, early March. And then the season is also, for me, is part of being what people like to call in shape. I call being in shape when you recover a little bit quicker. We're not going to do stuff to week after week after week. We got to have some breaks in there. The body needs recovery. So we got to prep it, let it rest, and then we go after it.
Coach, you actually have a question in the chat. Humble said, why did you want to become a coach?
Interesting question. I had no idea over 40 years ago that I would do this. I just sort of fell into doing this. I was kind of fast when I was a kid, and nobody ever really stopped and said, do this, do that, do this, do that. I just kind of fell into it. But now for me, it's when I see a kid, like I got a couple of kids that I just started working with, 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they're doing things that we need to fix today so that they're better when they get in high school. So for me, I want to help as many athletes as I can get better. I didn't have this kind of stuff. I'm training some kids whose parents and grandparents I went to school with at East and Garfield and Bookdale, and they're bringing their kids to me, and every time they would go, what if we did this when we were in school?
Yeah.
And I said, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be somewhere playing baseball, saying I'm not going to play baseball for $19 million a year anymore. If they can't pay me $20 million, I'm not playing. But nobody did this stuff. So I really, 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 truly want to see kids improve. Every athlete can get better. Doesn't mean you're going to go to state if you're a track and field athlete. But if in March you did a time trial in 100 that was 14.1 seconds, and in May you ran 13.8, you got better. That's my job. I want everybody to get better. Now, I don't know everything, but I've been fortunate enough to have access to about 5 or 6 people that can tell me stuff.
Yeah.
And one of those times was when Butch Reynolds was a speed coach at Ohio State with Tressel. I was on the field doing Troy Smith's pro day, and I was hitting people up like crazy for information. So if I think I can help you get better, but it's a process and it takes time, and we got to work at it. And then I want you to tell somebody else it helped you and it made you better. And there's no greater teacher of life than sport. Absolutely. We want to win. We want to lose. We don't want to go to practice. We don't want to go to work. So I like the aspect of group and teams. But as far as that goes, I just want to see kids get better, man. I just want to see them have an opportunity to play better, do better. And what I found, too, is when it comes to the academic side, if they're playing stuff and they're pretty good at it, they don't want to flunk. They don't want to miss out. They want to do stuff to stay better. It happens once in a while. But this kid is like, I'm nailing this, man. I'm getting this thing done. And you get more confident about yourself. If you know I'm playing good, I'm getting this, man. I got this.
Yeah.
I'm playing better. Confidence, man. Kids walking around, I feel good. This is it. This makes me. And kids have a tendency to stay out of trouble when they're doing stuff.
Yeah, I think too. It's like, and that's why I love having you on, Coach. And I was only supposed to have on a little short time, but I know you, you love sharing the information, and you don't miss the opportunity to help people with this. That's why I love having you on, and it's great to have you as a resource and personally too. So, um, yeah, I mean, it definitely. I think it helps. Sports, like you said, it's the biggest teacher, but also helps you build self discipline too. Because really, to be great, you have to kind of hold yourself accountable first. To you got to want to go to these sessions with Coach
Yep.
Legrair. You got to want to go to practice. You got to want to, And now I think more than ever, you're really seeing that the kids that really separate themselves because discipline is, in my opinion, isn't what it used to be 10 years ago when I played. Where if you miss practice, it was a big deal. Now it's just kind of like, well, whoever shows up today, that's what we got. It is what it is nowadays. It's kind of the culture we live in. But the guys that do go, the people that do go, they're the ones that are really panning out and having success.
Hard work beats talent when talent stops working hard. And there's the operative word here is hard. You got to work smarter while working harder. You can't beat yourself up every day and every day you beat yourself up. That's not the way to do it. But along that coaching thing, I think I told you last time we talked at Joy Park Community Center. I was leaving after a difficult session with some kids. Difficult meaning a couple kids were like cutting up a little bit. I had to sit them down. And I'm walking out talking to somebody, and there was an older woman standing at the door. And I told this guy, man, this was tough today. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this, man? This kid was just incorrigible today. And that's going to happen. They were 8 to 12-year-old kids. I held the door open for this lady. She walked out. When she got to the outer part of the door, she turned around and said, Coach. And I said, yes. She said, because you're supposed to. I'm thinking, what is she talking about? It didn't hit me until a few days later. I guess I'm supposed to do this. I look at it, I study it. I talk to people. I learn from stuff every day. But one thing, it's not work yet. So I'm still having fun.
Yeah. He said, last question. Well, he actually asked too, how do you measure your success as a coach? I feel like you answered that though. Seeing your progress with the players and the athletes you train. If you want to add anything to that as well. But he also said, what can players do in the off season, which I know you kind of hit on some of this, but he said, what can players do in the off season as far as conditioning and programs for players?
Well, one of the things they can do is to prep and rest. And that sounds crazy. And it sounds like he's beating his horse about rest and recovery. But there is a lot of stuff you can do in the off season. I'm seeing a 8th grade volleyball player now who prior to about 4 or 5 weeks ago, no one has ever really asked her to do a push-up or a sit-up or do anything like relatively physical along building that. The core strength is critical, shoulders to knees, not an 8-pack. That's just, that's good superficial stuff.
Yeah, you can have an 8-pack, but not have core stability.
Exactly. And you could lift a building, but you can't move, stop, run, start, or turn. So it's important to build on the things, particularly in the postseason, preseason, particularly in college track and field, and those they have cycles, megacycle, a macro cycle. But we can't do that with all the other sports because track and field season in high school is like 7 weeks. So that's why I start in December. But there's just a lot of little stuff you can do. This 8th grade girl is now, I think today we did 160 push-ups, 160 sit-ups, 160 body weight squats, and ran about 70 meters fast. Couldn't have done that 4 weeks ago when no one has ever asked her to do a push-up. But she's been doing homework. She's doing 80 push-ups, 80 sit-ups, and 80 squats a week. After next week, that's going to be 95.
Yeah, just keep increasing. Yeah.
Right. And it's the miracle of compounding. But the crazy thing is her dad texted me and said she's actually using this band and she's doing push-ups and sit-ups. A little bit at a time. It's little bitty bites of the apple at a time.
And he asked, too, he asked, how would you describe your coaching philosophy? I feel like you just answered that's kind of your philosophy, though, is increase the core, obviously core stability, strength, flexibility, balance, proper mechanics.
Yeah. How good or how bad do you want to be good? And like I said earlier, I had a lot of 7th, 8th grade kids that get to high school and they kind of fall off. I don't really want to do all of this stuff anymore. So now that kid that you were smashing in 7th and 8th grade is working his tail off, and now he's better because hard work beats talent when talent stops working hard. So it's just a little bit at a time. You got to be patient. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. There is no get fast, quick scheme, get strong, quick scheme. That it's just none of that stuff, man. It takes time, dedication, and patience. And I'm one to tell you about patience. Decades ago, I would say, "Oh Lord, give me patience, but hurry." But you just have to learn. You got to wait. You got to do the right stuff. You got to wait, and if I don't know the answer, I know who to call to find out.
Right. Coach, I can't thank you enough for taking time, and I know you had a busy day. I appreciate taking this long to come up here and answer questions and discuss a lot of this. Definitely going to share this all over, and I'm sure Tune will share it, obviously, because it's NBA related, and this is the big topic right now. So I feel like I appreciate you coming here tonight, giving your expertise. And before you get out of here, if anybody's interested in your training with you with their athletes, where can they find you at?
Yeah, cell phone's probably the best move. 330-592-1618. 592-1618 in the program, number 1 in your training heart. So just hit me up, give me a call, the email too, but cell phone's probably your best shot. Like I say, I'm willing to talk to anybody, do anything. You just got to be patient. You got to wait. I can evaluate you and show you what you're doing and how you can fix it.
Appreciate you, Coach. And I know, Tune, you got any last words, brother, for that Coach get out of here?
Yeah, I just want to say, thanks for answering my question today, Coach. I appreciate for having you on and, giving us insight.
Yeah, tell them Cavaliers I'm ready. I'm waiting for them to get them off them bicycles and keep them on the court.
Yeah, we gotta get you on the staff, man. We need a new training staff. We gotta get you on there, man.
Tell them I'm cheap and reasonable, but not easy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, appreciate you, Coach. We'll see you in the next one.
All right, man.
Salute.
Take care. Always good. Later.